There is no definition of a good appraisal. Because quite frankly, any lender, any person, any client who wants to can jump all over it.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out once again in the podcast, or the home podcast here today. Only one angle on the video today. I don't have the multiple video set up at the home studio, but deal with it, folks. It's still worth getting on YouTube for, by the way. I want to remind you that we are sponsored by a couple of great companies. Of course, Spark is the ability to save time, save money. Spark4appraisers.com, Spark, F-O-R, appraisers.com, and Working RE Magazine. Folks, skip the line, get to the end. Let them do all the work by gathering all the information and then learn what's going on in your career, folks. That's what they do. WorkingRE.com, WorkingRE.com. I want to welcome back to the program. Been on the program more than anyone else other than the host, Mr. Tim Andersen, the appraiser's advocate. Welcome, friend.
Dustin, thank you. It's good to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity.
People need to know, Tim, I'm just going to tease this a little bit. The best conversations happen before I hit the record button.
Well, yeah, that's the stuff we don't have to censor.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, I appreciate you being on, my friend. Tim, of course, is working hard, slaving in the fields to make sure that you are protected when it comes to state boards, that you're doing the right thing. But he's also a USPAP instructor and a USPAP expert. And today we're going to do one of our Dear USPAP Instructor episodes where we've got a couple of questions from listeners, my friend. Are you ready for these?
Ready.
Okay. First one comes from David. David asks, "Hey, Dustin," and I'm going to say, "Hey, Tim." A USPAP question for you, and that's why I said, "Hey, Tim," and not, "Hey, Dustin." I used the word investor and families in a report. The lender asked me to change/delete these words from the file, which is fine, but to also remove their request for that change. Is this a violation of USPAP in any way? And Tim, just to clarify, when I make a revision, I think most appraisers do this on a lender side. When we make a revision, we have an addendum at the end that says, you know, this report was turned in and then it was revised and here's what was revised. So this lender is saying, hey, take out the word investor, take out the word families. Why? I don't know. They didn't like those two words, but don't tell anybody that we told you to take it out. It's not a USPAP violation, friend.
Okay. Hey, Dave. Is that a USPAP violation in and of itself? No, it's not. Is it kind of snotty on the part of the client? Yeah, it is without question. But, Dave, there's that old saying, what hill do you want to die on? And this isn't the one. Now, if you got nothing else to do and you're 85 years old and you're getting ready to retire, okay, maybe this is the hill to die on. But it's not the hill I'd die on. And then to explain it, you put in your report something along the lines of, there have been revisions since the original report was sent into the client, period. These revisions were to remove ambiguous language, period, and then move on.
Okay.
Now, if the state board says, well, okay, why did you make the change? You're going to have to say, well, the client told me to. But without that direct question from the state board, it's probably never going to come up.
Right.
So that's why I say, this is not, Dave, this is not the hill you want to die on.
Okay, good. So let's clarify a little bit. Excellent answer, very succinct. I'm going to drag it out a little bit if you don't mind, Tim, because I think there's sometimes a confusion, and I fall into this same process sometimes. We forget what's Fannie Mae, what's USPAP. We sometimes conflate the two. So that addendum at the end of the report is a Fannie Mae thing, not a USPAP thing. In other words, hey, I turned in the report. And since then there's been a revision. However, it is a USPAP thing to not be misleading, right? And I think that's maybe where David's question is coming from, right? Is it misleading to take out those words and then not mention which words were taken out? You say no, but you probably ought to say there's been some type of addendum, right? Or
Well, that's why you say there have been revisions to the original report, period.
period.
Those revisions were made to clear up ambiguous language, period.
Mm-hmm.
Move on.
Yeah, love it. Okay. Mr. Tim Andersen is with us. He is the USPAP expert. He's also the appraiser's advocate. I want to talk a little bit more about that when we get back from the break, Mr. Tim Andersen. But first, I want to pause and remind you that we're sponsored by a couple of great companies. One of them will help you to save time. Well, they both will help you to save time, but in your report specifically. Folks, think about how much time you spend doing data entry. I'm talking about you've got the MLS, you've got the tax sheet, and you've got to type all of the stuff that's on this screen into this screen. In other words, take it from the MLS or the tax records and put it in your report. Folks, how would you like to do that with one button? Spark will allow you to do that, folks. What is that worth to you? Well, do the math, folks. If you are judging your time based on dollars per hour, folks, this is a no-brainer. Spark4appraisers.com, spark4appraisers.com. I mentioned the other sponsor today will also save you time, which of course saves you money. Folks, how much time are you spending studying what's going on in your world? You chose to be an appraiser. Are you keeping up with what's going on? Well, Working RE is, and they make it very, very easy for you. They take all of that fluff out there and succinctly bring it to your desktop for free, by the way. WorkingRE.com. Again, it's WorkingRE.com. And we are back, my friends. Mr. Tim Andersen is with us. He is the appraiser's advocate. What the hell does that mean, Tim? What is an appraiser's advocate?
Well, somebody has to help appraisers because appraisers don't get a lot of help.
This is true.
That's why I'm here. And I'm not the only one who does this by any means. But yeah, my goal is to help appraisers when they're in trouble with their state appraisal boards, but even more, make sure that they have a really small chance of going up before their state board.
Yeah.
So what I advocate is appraisers send stuff into me, and then I go over it from a USPAP standpoint and say, well, here are some weak points that need to be fixed, and here are some strong points that you need to capitalize on. And this is something. It's all too easy for state boards and clients and plaintiffs to jump all over appraisers.
Right.
And we basically have nobody looking out for our benefit. And while I can't look out for everybody's benefit, I can help you look out for your own.
Yeah.
Which is what I do. And Dustin, as you know, I stopped appraising many years ago. And now this is what I do. I work with appraisers who are in trouble with their state boards. And even more, I work with appraisers who aren't in trouble and don't want to be. And that is very fulfilling to me personally.
As a client of Tim's, folks, I can fully endorse the services that he provides. Well worth the money, well worth the time spent. I recently talked to one of my clients, one of the mastermind students, Tim, that you had helped out. And he said to me, I was surprised at how much I wasn't doing right. So thank you, Tim, for that. Okay, back to the Dear USPAP Instructor. These are questions coming from our listeners. You ready for one more, Tim?
Please.
Okay, this comes from Jack, one of my all-star team members. Jack says, hi, coach, got a question for you. What constitutes a, quote, good appraisal, unquote? I know that sounds like a simple question, but I mean it seriously. I hear people all the time on Facebook and in other places saying that they think they did a good appraisal, but the lender came back with revisions. How do we know what a good appraisal is and what a not so good appraisal is? Tim, what do you think?
Jack, thank you for asking the question. And I'm not trying to burst any bubbles here, nor am I trying to avoid answering the question, but there is no definition of a good appraisal. Because quite frankly, any lender, any person, any client who wants to can jump all over it. and your state board can jump all over it. And it depends on how hard the state board wants to jump. Obviously, there are major issues with appraisals and
Mm.
appraisal reports and
Mhm.
minor issues. Well, typically the state board looks for the big stuff, whereas a court may look for the minutia. And I may say the subject is zoned C1, which is a commercial designation, C, copy of the zoning code in the report's addendum. Whereas you may say the subject zoning is C1 and it allows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and go into great detail. Now, the thing is, you wrote out the great detail. I included it by reference. Is one better than the other? No, one is not better than the other.
Well, Tim, speaking of good appraisals, you've got a course coming out through Appraiser e-learning called CAR with 2 R's. Talk to us about that.
Well, CAR stands for credible, accurate, reliable, and reproducible. And basically, that's what the GSEs are demanding of us right now. They've always demanded credible. That's a USPAP issue. Accurate doesn't necessarily apply to the appraisal because, what's an accurate appraisal? But it applies to the data that we use. It applies to the adjustments that we use. And then reliable, from the standpoint of the GSEs, reliable means they can depend on it. And in the context of good appraisal, whatever a good appraisal is, when it's reliable, when the GSEs get a copy of one of your appraisals on their desk, they go, "Oh, this is from reliable person X," and they know that it's going to be the adjustments that are going to be proper. They're going to be properly calculated. There aren't going to be any funky adjustments. There's nothing going to be made up. $87 a square foot for the GLA adjustment may be just wonderful, but reliable person has the backup to the $87 a square foot. And then the last one, reproducible, basically means Fannie Mae can sit down with the GSEs can sit down with the data that they have for the same neighborhood, the same block even. And for example, they do their adjustments and they come up with $85 a square foot for the GLA adjustment. So 85, 87, that's a reasonable gap. But the GSE's complaint, whether it be valid or not, and let's face it, there's some room in there to debate, is they are asking now and will be demanding very soon that an appraisal be credible, accurate, reliable, and reproducible. So the good folks at AEL asked me to put together a seminar on that, and I did. And it's available on AEL's website. It's self-paced. It's not live. I guarantee you, it's not live. I had to go to 2 separate recording sessions, and then record some here in my office. But you can take it at your own pace.
Wonderful.
And we talk. We give writing examples. We give real world examples. We show what works. We show what doesn't work, and all in the context of credible, accurate, reliable, and reproducible. I was just telling Dustin before we came on the air, I've been doing some research into critical thinking. And I've read quite a bit about, there's quite a bit on the internet on critical thinking and what constitutes critical thinking, what's important, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the hallmarks, or excuse me, some of the hallmarks of a critical thinker is the ability to realize that somebody else can look at the very same situation and come up with a completely different answer.
And which one's right, Tim?
Yeah, see, that's the point. Which one's right? So it's not so much that there isn't a good appraisal. There is an appraisal that complies with USPAP, and then of course, who's to decide that? Now, if you get with me, if you consult with me, I say, does my report comply with USPAP? I'll answer the question, yes or no. But then, my opinion, and $25 will buy you lunch someplace.
Right.
Only the state board can decide whether the appraisal did or did not meet USPAP. Nobody else can. And, when the AMC calls up and says, well, this report doesn't comply with USPAP, maybe they're right, frankly, but then they don't have the qualifications to make that conclusion. I don't have the qualifications to make that conclusion. I'm a USPAP instructor. Being a USPAP instructor can be a lot of fun, but basically what it shows me is how much I don't know about USPAP.
Right, right.
So there is no such thing as a good appraiser. It's like defining beauty. What's the definition of beauty?
Yeah.
There isn't one.
Well, you're looking at it, Tim.
And, pardon me?
Nothing. Go on. I said you're looking at it, but of course.
That's true. That's true. Masculine pulchritude or incorporated there on the screen, right in front of that brick wall. So, Jack, there isn't an answer to the question. Does it all your state looks at is, does the appraisal comply with standard 1? Does the report comply with standard 2? If the answer to both of those questions is yes, you don't have a problem. Is it a good appraisal? I don't know. I don't know what a good appraisal is. I've seen appraisals that I would frame and hang on the wall. I've seen appraisals that I wouldn't frame and hang on the wall, but yet they complied with USPAP. So there isn't an answer to the question.
Is that really what was in your head when you said, I've seen appraisals that I wouldn't frame and put on the wall? Because I thought you were going a completely different direction. Tim, as always,
I'm trying to be civil, Dustin.
Yeah, I know you are. As always, very good answers and perfect answers. Folks, if you have questions and would like to send them in, the coach at theappraisercoach.com or Tim
at theappraisersadvocate.com.
Thank you, friend. Till next time.
Thank you, Dustin. I appreciate it. My best to your family.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.